This topic is of interest to me, and I thought I would share it with you. It's always confusing, and at times we can interchangeably use those two words, the sadaqah and the zakat. And I thought if I can shed some light and distinguish between the two, hopefully that will benefit everybody. And in this presentation, I thought I'll summarize the content of it so you would know what to expect. I looked at some of the background. That's all our leaders, religious leaders, of course, that's what I meant, what they have declared for us as Muslims. Then I will share with you an introduction followed by a definition of what's zakat and what's sadaqah. There is a topic that is, I'm not gonna delve into it. I wouldn't call it controversial, but it's very deep topic. The khums, I'll mention it, but I will not talk about it. And I hope there will be some spin-off from this, and we'll ask somebody of higher authority to talk about the khums. Then I'll talk about the zakat and who are the 8 kind of people who can accept the zakat. We'll talk about the sadaqah, what's the virtue of sadaqah. And the question also is coming to, I wouldn't call it as bothering us as much as it's always, we question, can we give sadaqah to non-Muslims? And finally, I will end up with a couple of summaries, hopefully that will summarize some of the key points that I'm sharing with you. Let me see if I can. All right. So the background, the Muslim obligation to eliminate world poverty. Contrary to what we all think, Muslim countries that are not poor, that are poorly managed, definitely. And we can always look at countries like Malaysia, like Iran, like Turkey, that are much better managed than some other countries. So what I'm saying is, Islam encourages Muslims to deal with poverty in the world. Not only this, it charges the Muslim to deliver a cure to the poverty. Thus, it gives us the means and the ways to do this. And on top of this list of this means, it's the establishment of zakat. And Muslim cannot execute the zakat haphazardly without having an institution that will actually disperse of the zakat. So the Islam had established for us a means and a system that actually position us as a community to achieve the ordained end of raising the poor out of their need. So it is in our duty as Muslims to eradicate poverty if we could, but at least if we can, alleviate the poverty among the people, especially the Muslims. With that as a background, let me give you an introduction about the topics that I have started with. In Islam, the concept of charitable giving is divided into a voluntary giving, which we call sadaqah, which is a voluntary, but there is the obligatory part of it, or another mean of it, which is the zakat. But since it's an obligatory practice, the zakat is governed by a specific set of rules that was established. And the intention of those rules is to fulfill a well-defined set of theological and social requirements. So it's governed by a set of rules. It's not done haphazardly. For that reason, while zakat plays a much larger role with the Islamic charity, sadaqah, we should not discount it. It's it's another means to give all different kind. It's not limited to money. The sadaqah could cover many other aspects of giving. And this subject of alms or sadaqah, it's not strange to other monolithic religions. In Judaism, it's called Zadaqah. It's a Hebrew term, literally means righteousness, but commonly used to signify charity. So it's a religious obligation. I'm not going to speak about the Hebrew religion or Judaism, but to my understanding, it's a religious obligation to do it right and just. So other religion has established an institution or a practice to dispose of the zakat. In Christianity also, the giving of alms, it's an act of charity toward the one that are less fortunate. So our religion, Islam, it's no strange to the fact of alms and zakat like other religions do. However, and that's the beauty of Islam, there are sets of rules of how to do and who gets the charitable donation. So let me, after we introduce the subject, and let me start with some definition. And forgive me, I'm not being very trivial in here, but it's good to establish a common knowledge of the terms. When we talk about sadaqah, it's an Arabic word which called sadaqah, and of course in English is sadaqah, but in Urdu it turned out it's the same thing as sadaqah. What it means, it's charity or benevolence. And you can see it in the Quran at times as singular, sadaqah, or plural. In the plural, it's sadaqat. And the theologian has come to define it as a voluntary charity. According to the Quran, also, it means a voluntary offering whose amount is at the will of the benefactor. So it's not governed by any sets of rules. Sadaqah, it's a voluntary act. Just a fact that to share with you that it was mentioned 13 times in the Quran, 5 times as a singular term, sadaqah, and 8 times as in a plural format. So this is the basic definition of sadaqah. If we want to go to the other term, which is zakat, as I said, it's a required minimum contribution by Muslims in terms of not only money, also properties or other goods. And the intention of it is to help the Muslim who mostly need assistance. The zakat, to the opposite of the sadaqah, it's not up to the benefactor. The amount is fixed, and it is utilized according to that which has been stated by the Islamic law, and it is paid only once a year. So I wouldn't call it a loose act, sadaqah. It's still governed by a certain protocol, but the requirement on the zakat are more stringent than they are on the sadaqah. Let me pause in here and just please tell me, you're hearing me okay?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Excellent.
Perfectly.
Thank you. All right, since we have defined those two terms, I would like to go into a little bit more of details about the zakat and the sadaqah and the rules and regulation that governs the zakat. And then since the sadaqah, it's an obligatory, it's a voluntary act, sure, we do it for the benefit of the others and to the benefit of ourselves. So, but the zakat, knowing this, it is known that it is the third of the 5 pillars of individually obligatory worship in Islam. And I'm not going to go into the details of it, but we all know that the zakat, it's one of those 5 pillars. The Muslim or anybody who is ascribed to the Islamic teaching fulfills this zakat by paying a set sum in yearly alms. Now, I have searched, and it seems like, of course, between the Sunni and the 2 branches of Islam, the main branches of Islam, the Sunni and the Shia, they set it up to be 2.5%. I could be mistaken, but that's what was reported in the literature. That's the amount set. But this percentage, it's out of the head of the household in the form of the surplus wealth. And I will get to this point to show you where this zakat can be applied. And since we have rules that sets the amount, there is another rule to supplement this as to whom can receive the zakat. And our ulama, especially in the Shia sect of Islam, had identified 8 kinds of people whom God has himself designated in the Quran as either directly deserving or as qualified beneficiaries of its payment. So the zakat, it's a fixed amount, and also the recipients are well identified. Let me get to the point where who are the people can accept zakat. Of course, its main intention are the poor. In addition, the needy, and to the contrary to what we at times think, the administrators of the zakat are entitled to receive part of the zakat. The one who disperse or dispose of the zakat, they are entitled to have a certain percentage of it. Not only this, that's another thing. I mean, not only the Muslim, the one whose hearts are to be reconciled, meaning new Muslims and friends of the Muslim community are qualified to receive the zakat. Of course, that's something that probably we don't see these days, but those who are in bondage, slaves and captives, the one who are debt-ridden, those are, I mean, if the debt incurred based on no malicious action of their part, not like gambling and losing money and they are in debt and the zakat is not going to be given to them. 7, in the cause of God. Again, in here, the one who are stranded or traveling with few resources, those are entitled also to the zakat. So now, at times we give the zakat and we don't know how the administrator will dispose of it. Most probably they have a set of rules based on those 8 categories of people. I was fortunate, and my wife brought my attention a book by Salman al-Ghaffari from the Imam Hussein Foundation in Qom in Islamic Republic of Iran. And he has a book, and I can share it with anybody who's interested in it. It's called The Zakat as Described in the Furududdin. It's in English and well written. And he described in this book And I brought some of the definition also from Sheikh Jawad Maghniyi, but here the zakat is, he defines it as money taken from the rich and returned to the poor. Keep in mind, some of us at times, out of ignorance, we argue, well, hey, I'm paying my taxes. I'm paying my local, my state, my federal taxes, I'm paying. No, zakat is not a tax. And the believer has the right to spend his zakat by himself without supervision from other authorities. So that's something I personally didn't know this. I can, according to my wisdom or the lack of it, I might be able to dispose of it in any way I see fit. But to reach the actual people that are mostly in need for it, we rely on institutions that they dispose of it in a much better way than we can probably. And according to the Shia, I mean, that's something also we have to be careful. Some other sect that might think of it differently, but there are three goods are to be subject to zakat. First, and in Furud al-Din by Sheikh Salman al-Ghafari, he categorize them in the grains, meaning if you are in possession of wheat, barley, dates, any kind of grains, there is a zakat on it. If you have livestock like cattle, cows, goats, sheep, chickens, all this that are subject to zakat. Any metals like gold, silver, any precious metals, those that are subject to zakat. So this one category of zakat, there is another one that occurs, and we just did it actually, is Zakat al-Fitra, when you break your fast. And according to Salman al-Ghafari, time of payment is between visibility of Shawwal moon and the prayer of Eid al-Fitr. And that's something our brothers, Mahmoud, had reminded us constantly that needs to be done before Eid al-Fitr. Contrary to the Sadaqah that was mentioned 13 times in a singular or plural form, the Zakat was mentioned 32 times in the Quran. That tells you how important the Zakat is. Just in here, Surah 22, Ayah 41, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, الذين إن مكنتهم في الأرض أقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأمروا بالمعروف ونهوا عن المنكر ولله عاقبة الأمور. Just a simple example to share with you that the zakat was mentioned many, many times, actually 32 times in the Quran. According to Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, and according to the book as it was described, written by Sheikh Jawad Maghniyi in Al-Kashif, volume 1, page 430, there is zakat. I mean, this is very interesting, and I will read it in Arabic, then this is my own interpretation of it. قال الإمام جعفر الصادق على كل جزء من أجزائك زكاة لله، فزكاة العين هي الاعتبار والغض عن المحرمات، وزكاة الأذن هي الاستماع إلى العلم والحكمة، وزكاة اللسان الحمد والشكر لله والنصيحة للمسلمين، وزكاة اليد هي البذل، وزكاة الرجل السعي للجهاد والإصلاح بين الناس. Let me translate in its entirety so you can see the meaning of all this. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq said, there is zakat to God on every part of your body. Zakat for your eyes, is your humble demeanor and avoiding of vices. Zakat for your ear is listening to the logic and the wisdom. Zakat for your tongue is praise and thanking God and advising believers. Zakat for your hand is generosity, open hand. Zakat for your legs is seeking perseverance and spreading goodwill. So our Aimma had emphasized the zakat in addition to what the Quran had instructed us. With that, I think I believe that I have covered the zakat, but as I said up front, I will not delve in this subject, but I will be remiss if I don't bring it up. In Islam, especially in Shiaism, the khums. The khums literally means the fifth. And that's not a strange concept. The alms or the tithe in Christianity, which is the 10th, it's a very known fact where they take 10% of their possession and they give it as charity. So in khums, in Shiaism, refers to required religious obligation of all Muslims to pay 1/5 of their acquired wealth from certain sources towards specified causes. It is differently treated in Shia than in Sunni Islam. This tax is paid to the Imam or the Caliph or the Sultan, representing the state of Islam, for distribution between the orphans, the needy, and the traveler or the stranded traveler. Again, this subject, my understanding, the khums was mentioned only once in the Quran, but it has much far implication in Shia Islam. And I hope we can find somebody who would volunteer to delve into this subject and give us more details. But I personally, I just thought I would mention it and I'll move on. I'll move on to the next topic that I have, the second part of the topic or the subject, which is the Sadaqah. The Sadaqah, since it's a voluntary, it has a lot of virtue. We do it for, we benefit from it. And the Sadaqah, it helps cure illness and averts death. Sadaqah tudhibul bala. Sadaqah erases hardships and remove calamities. Sadaqah is an investment in this life and the hereafter. Sadaqah expiates sins. Sadaqah is one of the gates of Jannah. Sadaqah will be your shade on the day of judgment. Sadaqah will purify your nafs. Sadaqah is a mean of acceptance of the dua. And there is a huge topic about interchangeable dynamic interaction between the dua and the sadaqah. Probably I will leave it to another talk, inshallah. However, I mean, as I have shared with you the rules and regulations that governs the zakat, there are also, our Aimma had given us ways to give sadaqah other than just giving money. And that governs the interaction between us as believers. So rather than, in addition to giving money as sadaqah, there are other ways of bestowing sadaqah on others. Every step you take towards the prayer is a sadaqah. Quenching someone's thirst is a big sadaqah. And I brings everybody attention who went to Hajj. You know, people were fighting to give you water because they think and they know giving this that will consider to them as a sadaqah, quenching somebody's thirst. Enjoining good on others is a sadaqah. Spending on your family is a sadaqah. Your honesty is a sadaqah. Meeting and greeting with a smile is considered well as a sadaqah. Sharing your knowledge, and especially with the competitive environment that we live in. As a Muslim, and I've experienced it with many good Muslims, they are not shy of sharing their knowledge. This is a sadaqah. Removing something harmful from the road or from, I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed it, just shopping in the aisles of a grocery store. Many times you see items being thrown off the shelf. Many times I only see the Muslim put those items back on the shelves. It's a form of sadaqah. Every good act to do is written as a sadaqah for you. Zikrullah, it's a sadaqah. So you notice in here some of those desired behavior that's integrated within our civilized behavior as Muslim, as Shia, that are all considered as sadaqah. So do them out of the goodness of your heart. You will be rewarded for it as a sadaqah. Now, let me go to this topic very quickly. And everybody, well, including myself, can I give sadaqah to non-Muslim? While there are loose rules that around giving sadaqah, as you've noticed, such as the intention and to give with no exception of reward, expectation of reward, there are no rules on who can receive the sadaqah, as it can be an act of kindness intended to provide aid or support to anyone in need. But, I mean, you can give it to anybody, it seems like, either in your behavior as an integrated part of this civil society, or as a requirement being a Muslim, but it's got to be on somebody who needs it or he deserves it. Again, in here, I will not miss this subject because you've heard it and we've talked about it. Other form of sadaqah, and we call it the Sadaqah Jariyah. A Sadaqah Jariyah, we all thrive to leave something behind. And that's called Sadaqah Jariyah, is the act of making a long-term charitable contribution that continues to benefit someone other than yourself. Examples of Sadaqah Jariyah: building homes, building schools, hospitals, orphanage, water wells, converting areas of land into farms to produce crops for many years, teaching, sharing your knowledge, bringing a new generation. This is a Sadaqah Jariyah. And it was mentioned in the Quran, and I elected to take two ayats. Surely the man who gives sadaqah and the woman who gives sadaqah and have advanced a good loan to Allah, for them it will be multiplied, and for them there is a noble reward. So it is rewarded. Sadaqah, it is rewarded also, although it's voluntary. The semblance of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah is as the likeness of a grain of corn, which grows 7 years, and each year has 100 grain. Allah gives manifold increase to whomever He pleases. Allah is the all-sufficient, all-knowing. So my dear brother and sister, the sadaqah and the Sadaqah Jariyah, we ought to pay attention to both forms of it. With that, I think I have exhausted this topic, so I would like to leave you with a summary of the topic that we have discussed or shared. The primary objective of Zakat is to elevate the spirit of a human being above the material acquisition. Islam views the Zakat prayer as a person who always needs purification and cleansing, both spiritually and materially. By the way, zakat, zakah, cleansing, that's the meaning of it. It is mentioned in the Tawbah, Surah Tawbah, take sadaqah from their wealth in order to purify them and sanctify them with it and invoke Allah for them. Verily, your invocation are a source of security for them, and Allah is the all-hearer, all-knower. The main objective of zakat is to help the society by giving something from your wealth. In return, the Muslims get tremendous rewards, not only in this world, but in the hereafter. Zakat also purifies your wealth and possession. Islam guides us to make this world a better place by helping others in need, and that's why it puts emphasis on charity, on zakat. My other summary, according to the Quran, God himself receives the alms. That's something that I have, not only in the Quran, even our Imam Sajjad had mentioned the same thing. ألم يعلموا أن الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم يعلموا أن الله هو يقبل التوبة عن عباده ويأخذ الصدقات وأن الله هو التواب الرحيم. Do they not know that Allah who accepts the repentance of his servants and receives the charities, and is Allah who's the all clement, all merciful. This verse shows the significance of alms, as-sadaqah. It encourages all Muslims to give alms and tells them to respect people to whom they give their alms and zakat, since they are received first by God. And this point was emphasized by Imam Sajjad alayhi salam when he said as-sadaqah, or the alms, goes to the hand of the person in need only after it goes to the hand of God. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله. Please forgive me if I committed any errors in here. My intention is pure and to discuss this subject and bring it to your attention.
اللهم صل على محمد
Very nice.